I literally just like posted a video one day and I woke up and it had like millions of views. And I had texts from friends being like, why are you on my For You page?
Wow. Okay. Finally, we're meeting. Like, how long did this take to schedule? Like, literally,
Like a month.
15 texts.
Like a bunch of
so many. We're like, SF, should we do it? New York should do it, but we're travel girlies.
Just
so
bi-coastal queens.
we're literally like this. When you're in SF, I'm in New York, and we're just bopping around.
Like actually, the only day we can meet, like literally only day. And then in San Francisco, there was only one day.
Yeah.
So.
And I was literally gonna change my entire flight to do it with you. I was like, I'm gonna red eye, and then I'm going to Uber from the airport to the studio, and then I'm gonna do the spots. And then I thought about it, I was like, that's actually really stupid. That's actually not a good idea. That's a great way to be way too tired.
Yeah, for the pod itself.
Not show up in the right way. And then I was like, okay, we're gonna make a new time work. And then this worked, and it's finally happening, and it's in your city. I'm so excited about.
We're both at home.
True. Yes. Oh my God, I miss New York so much. And I mean, I haven't been here in like 4 months, 5 months, like, not that long. It feels like simultaneously a lifetime, and also almost like I'm coming back home to like, a place where I feel most comfortable, just because I just so recently lived here for so long.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've lived in so many cities. Like I don't know, like so many European cities, and also Chicago and Boulder, right? And now New York. Like what did you learn from these cities? What's your favorite city? Like, do you want to be in New York like full time, long term? Like what are you thinking about all this?
Yeah, I get this question a lot because when I sort of tell my story, like when I meet people for the first time, like, where are you from? I'm like, well, there's like a lot of things that I can answer with that question. I've definitely got it from my parents, or like my mom, who moved to the US when she was like 19 and has definitely had like the travel, like international bug her whole life, and so that was definitely passed down to me. But like growing up in California in the Bay Area, so that's sort of like my hometown, I guess. I didn't really want to stay in California just because I wanted to broaden my worldview, or just like where I was getting, like, everyone just tells you that the Bay Area and Silicon Valley is a bubble. Like I wanted to get out of that because we had grown up in it. Like we were both from the Bay. So I went to college in Boulder, Colorado. That was really just like, I remember going to campus there for the first time, and just the city is so beautiful, and there's so much nature to offer. I love nature, and that was it. That was really it. I was like, this is just such an amazing place, and like, why would I not live here for 4 years and go to school here, where I'm close to like hiking and skiing and all these things that can bring me happiness when I know I'm going to be like studying and grinding for 4 years straight, right? So that was like the thought behind that. I absolutely loved living in Boulder. I think it opened my eyes to a lot of different types of people, and just like not living in a coastal city too. It's very different, like, living
experience. Actually so true. Yeah. The coastal cities, which are the only cities I've ever lived in, world's different from basically like every other place.
Yeah. But it's also like just creating a new home in all the different cities that I've lived in. Like I feel so grateful because I have like many homes, places that I can call home across the, like all over the world and all over this country, which I love.
That feels like a quintessential life skill. Like you can, no matter where you go, you can figure it out, find your way around, make yourself comfortable, find people, find friends. Like that feels like ultimate life hack to know how to do that.
Yeah.
So well.
I think it's one of my favorite hobbies too, like, is just like getting to know a city. Like that's like the best thing, is just like getting up, like getting a coffee and just walking around the city mindlessly and aimlessly, like not knowing what I'm going to do and just sort of exploring it and trying to figure out how to make it home. Like that's why part of why I love to travel, but also like live in these new cities and new experiences. Like I sort of, I don't know, I probably get bored from them easily too. So I don't know if that's good or bad though.
No, that's good. You're like explorer girl. You're gonna, there's so million bajillion cities in the world. Now you can just go live in all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
How has living in all these cities shaped your career? Do you feel like some cities are better or worse for your career? Or there's a certain phase of your life where it's important to be in that city, and in another phase of your life, maybe it's, doesn't serve you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really think that like career and job stuff is unfortunately impacted by your location. I think that somehow I've traversed that like negative side of things. I definitely felt that when graduating from college, so I was in Boulder, right? Like most of the job opportunities are Denver. Like there's just like a very straight pipeline. And that's true for most colleges. Like the pipeline that you go to is like the closest big city to you, is most of the time how it works. So you really have to like work harder to get outside of that pipeline and you don't just fall into what's easy, like go to the biggest city near you and get the job offer that you can just sort of easily get. I really had to push to go to Chicago, which is where I moved after I graduated from college. But I think that because I had moved away from home once I graduated from high school, I was able to make that second move after college even more easily. So it was like I had already broken free from the nest and had to be dropped into a new state in a new city with no one that I knew at a new college. So then I already had like a network in California, a network in Colorado, and so then jumping to Chicago was like pretty easy because I'd already sort of been around the block. And then from there, I moved to New York City. At that time, it was my 4th time moving to a new city, and sort of knew how to tackle that. Like, okay, like how do you get to know people? How do you establish yourself? How do you like find the jobs that you need there? And part of it, especially in New York City, when you're applying for jobs, I feel like is you just have to lie about your location. Yeah. Like you're just like, yeah, I'm already based here. Yeah. And if you get the job offer, you move right like within a week. You just have to do that.
Oh my God, great advice. I'm so glad you said that, because a lot of people complain. They're like, there's just not enough opportunities where I'm located. Okay, just say you're located.
No, you like
literally no one's gonna know. No one's gonna find out.
Yeah,
and you can just make that a reality once you get the job. Exactly, and then it becomes true. So
if you want it that bad, you'll move in a day if you need to. You know.
Totally. So when you go to a new city, brand new, don't know anyone, what's the first thing you do?
I find a coffee shop. I love the coffee shop. If it's nighttime, okay, like maybe like a bar, like cafe, let's say. Mm-hmm. I love coffee, and I feel like finding like the trendy cafe of the area that you're staying in is like the best gateway to be like, okay, like what's the vibe? Like there's normally locals there. Like you can talk to the barista even like when you're ordering your coffee and be like, what should I do? Like, I don't know. And I just love coffee. So it's just like my home base. So like start there. I'm like, okay, so ready to start my day. And then I'll like walk around, probably do like sightseeing things or whatever I found. Like I honestly use TikTok when I go to a new city and just like research like what to do. So it's not like I normally find things that are more off the beaten path, but
yes. Yeah. I love TikTok for finding the new restaurant, the new bar, whatever, and just going there. And then you get like kind of like you said, the vibe of the city, and you can very quickly kind of adjust to that. And then I honestly find that when I'm kind of curating and selecting, okay, what are these first 2 things I want to do in the city, I'm more likely to run into or make a friend who also likes that same thing that I do, and then it's a higher likelihood of actually connecting with that person.
Yeah, that's so true. Or like going outside like for lunch or something, or dinner if you're like eating alone outside at some restaurant, and then like there might be someone else who's like a solo traveler like with you, or like someone who also just moved to the city or whatever it is. Yeah.
So you've worked at Brandy Melville, you've worked as a barista, you worked at LinkedIn, which is one of the biggest tech companies in the world. You now run marketing at a software startup. So I feel like you've done everything. How has all this diversity of experiences shaped you as a person? And honestly, I'd love to just for you to walk us through that career journey. Like, it's so fascinating, and how you were able to kind of move through these things, and like your decision behind like what you chose to like land you at the role that you have now.
Yeah, that is a really great question. But I'll walk you through it, because I love telling my career story and like journey, because I think that it's pretty vital to understand like what moments in your career and what things like made you pivot in certain directions, and that's just sort of how you shape your career path. But anyways, yes, like you said, I started my maybe not my career, but like my first ever job was at Brandy Melville when I was like 15 years old. It was super hot back then, and I was so excited to work there.
That was like the it job when you were 15.
It was like the coolest thing to do. I worked at the Palo Alto Brandy Melville. I've made TikToks about my experience there. I worked there for 3 years. Like put me all through high school. Like I've always been someone, and my parents have always been like, you need to make your, like if you want like extra money or pocket cash or whatever, like you need to make it yourself. Like you need to get a job, learn how to budget when I was like at a younger age, that type of thing. So it was like, okay, like if I need to get a job, I'm gonna get a job that I like. So
the cool girl job.
Yeah. Yes. So I worked at Brandy for 3 years, became like assistant manager. It was great. It was fun. Met a lot of really girls, cool. A lot of friends. I like fashion, so it was like a fun place to work. Definitely long hours, but like I made money, and that's how I sort of started saving. And I think working there and working in retail, and like your first job normally in college, your first job normally in high school, which is like normally working in retail or like a coffee shop or I don't know, something like that, just gives you those fundamental skills of how to just operate as an employee, show up to work on time, like how do time cards work. Like there's just like these fundamental things that when you contribute to a company, you need to understand. And I think from working at Brandy Melville, it was really that, and like how to work with a team and just like manage expectations, I guess. It's very fundamental skills that you get.
What was the most shocking thing about that experience? Like first job, like what surprised you the most?
I remember being so surprised by how big my paycheck was. I was like, people like I just didn't understand the concept of getting like that amount of money every 2 weeks. And so that was the first thing I was like, oh my God, I have like disposable income. I was so shocked by that.
Yeah.
But the working part of it was like, I feel like pretty standard. Like you just sort of get used to it. Yeah. Okay. That was like the boring part, like working in retail. I don't know, sort of fun, but sort of boring. Then from there, my next job was in college. Again, like I worked all through college to have, you know, pocket money to go out and do what I wanted to do. My first job in college was actually working at the UPS store on campus. You know, I learned some pretty like basic life skills there in terms of like how shipping works, which is a fundamental skill to just learn.
Wow, I don't know at all how that works. That makes sense.
So it's a super random, like people look at me and like I go to a UPS store now, like in my neighborhood where I get my packages delivered, and they know that I used to work at UPS, and they look me up and down and they're like, there's no way you worked at a UPS store. Like I don't come across as someone who would.
No, you don't.
But it's actually great because I understand just like, you know, like what goes, like how shipping works, which is everyone needs to ship stuff all the time. So it's just like from that, I learned a very basic life skill, and I got to make some extra money on the side. But from there, then my first internship really was a part-time internship my sophomore year of college. It was a social media marketing intern at just like a small nonprofit in Boulder, Colorado. And from there, at that place, I learned how an actual like, well, I guess it was a nonprofit, but like how a corporation and like a business operates, and when you're working on like the corporate side of things, you know. I also learned that I didn't want to do social media marketing as a career full time. Like I thought that I wanted to do social media marketing because I loved social media, you know, in my personal life. And I'm pretty
sure you said that you've always wanted to do marketing. Like you knew that was the thing you wanted to do.
Yes. I've always wanted to do marketing. And so that's why I took this internship, and, you know, it was I was like, honestly, just say yes to anything. Like it wasn't like the dream internship or whatever, but.
And it's like the perfect first job to start your career in marketing.
Yeah. It was really easy. It was like, not really easy. I mean, I would basically like create the social media content for this nonprofit that I was working for. I worked there for a year, just like part-time, like I think it was like 10 hours a week, like pretty chill. But again, this time it was basically having a part-time job, but I was actually getting real world experience that would apply directly to the career that I wanted. And so that I think was the most like the thing that I can pinpoint a lot of my next career steps to, because at the same time that I had that internship, I was also the president of the American Marketing Association chapter at CU Boulder. And that was being involved in campus was really, really helpful. And that's a job in and of itself, like being a leader in any organization on campus.
That's just as important as a part-time job, if not more important, because it's like critical leadership experience that you can put on your resume to get like some exceptional job after you graduate. And I think it's tricky to show legitimate leadership experience through work experience. So actually being a club president or like having that leadership role on campus, I think is the best way to do that. Yeah, completely.
I think like when students ask me what they can do to stand out from other people and how they can get experience when you don't really have that much experience, it's like join a club, join any club.
That's the best answer.
It's the only way. Like I think that's like probably why they exist too, is like for students to take these leadership roles in a like low risk environment where you're not making money or anything. So I think those two together really like set me up for success, because I was very early on in my student career showing that I was really driven and wanted to be on this path towards marketing. Like I was president of a marketing club and a part-time social media marketing intern. From there, I then had my first startup experience ever. After my sophomore year of college, I was a sales operations intern at a software startup called Clary. They've now scaled. They're doing amazing still.
What propelled you to do sales after social media?
Yeah.
Especially because you're like, I want to do marketing.
Yeah. So again, strategic decision. Like it was after my sophomore year of college. I knew that if I wanted a really good internship my junior year of college, I needed an internship my sophomore year. Like most of my peers were just like, didn't have the faith in themselves or confidence in themselves that they could get an internship. Like most people just doubt themselves all through college, I think, that were like, oh, like I'm just going to wait. Like I can't get an internship until I'm almost a senior, like a senior in college. But like, what's stopping you? So I was just mass applying everywhere. And honestly, this was the only place, like I happened to have a connection at this company. It was the only place that gave me an offer. I actually no, I originally applied to their content marketing internship position and I was rejected by it. And so I reached back out to the recruiter and said, hey, like I'd love to understand why I was rejected. So we had a quick little like phone call after, and he explained it to me. I'm like, okay, I understand. Like they basically wanted someone with more experience. Totally valid. But because I made that call, he literally on the call was like, but you know what? We are actually looking for this other role. We haven't posted it yet. And I think you would be a great fit. Like, this is what the description is. And like on the spot, basically, I was just like, yep, like I can do that. I can do this role because of XYZ. Like I have experience doing that. Like I'd love to meet with the hiring manager. And so like I had an interview the next day. The next day I got the offer.
Right.
Like, and all because I reached back out and said why.
That literally like is everything. I say this all the time, where you want the best chance you have are roles that are not posted yet, roles that you don't, because then you have no competition. You just have to sell yourself. Obviously you have to be competent and actually do the job. And like in that moment when he's like talking about it, you sold yourself well because you had that interview prep behind you. But yeah, you had no competition. Like it was either you're a good fit or you're not. And so it really helps to, you know, ask for feedback, continue to put yourself out there, create opportunities, talk to as many people as possible, because then you get that referral or you get that opportunity placed. I think a lot of people really get demotivated because like I can't get an internship because they keep getting rejected from these internships because they're being compared to like thousands of people also are applying for the internship. The reality of the situation is the people who get the internships are not the ones who are just posting at these like black hole like resume portals. They're networking, they're going out and finding those unique opportunities. They're, you know, creating opportunities for themselves, literally just like you did. And I think a lot of the time the path is not clear. So it's a little bit of spray and pray and like trying random things. Yeah. Almost like luck, but you can manufacture and create more luck for yourself simply by just putting yourself out there more, which you totally did, which I think is actually the key to get an internship.
Yeah, no, that's so true. You can manufacture luck for yourself. That's 100% what it is. Like you have to put action and passion into what you're doing and to make these things happen. But there is, of course, always an aspect of luck. But yeah, it's like there's a lot of different factors that go into it, but you have to be driven and sort of go after what you want.
Totally. Yeah, it's not going to be handed to you. For sure.
So anyways,
yeah, so what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, so I think, so that was my first, I always refer to it as my first like real internship experience. It was a full-time summer internship for 2 months. I was commuting to an office every day. I was in a startup. We were about like 150 people. It was like honestly like such a sweet spot of the company to be in. We were like, I want to say Series C on the rise, and it was just like a great environment. Like everyone was amazing. Culture was amazing. I learned so much being there. And it's what made me realize that I wanted to go into tech. Growing up in Silicon Valley, I was very anti-tech. Like my dad's in tech. Oh my god,
girl, literally same.
Yeah, it's like this.
But like we come full circle.
Here we are, both in tech back again. So yeah. In startups, like we can't escape.
Real.
So I was just like, no, I don't want to do tech. I want to do like something like sexy, like CPG, or like work at an agency or something cool like that. You know what I mean?
It's what we don't know or is far from home is always when we're younger the cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And then you realize that, oh, actually what we know can be cool too.
Yeah, and we grew up in it, so we have this inherent like knowledge of how it operates and how it works.
There is privilege and advantage to growing up in the Bay Area, 100%. And I truly believe you have the privilege, you should tap into it, right? Like don't ignore that privilege.
Yeah,
you have it, right?
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. So I wish I hadn't pushed it away for so long.
I did the same thing for several years, so I get it.
Yeah. So really, I think that like it taught me so much about how the tech ecosystem works. I broadened my network insanely. And then I also really learned how sales works and the sales process works, which I think if you're on the go-to-market side of any business, like marketing, sales operations, like whatever it is, that's so vital to understand just like how a sales pipeline works, how sales territories get made. Like I was doing sales operations, so I was doing all the back end stuff. Like how do you verticalize, like who you go after, all those different things that are just like, it's like the heart of business is understanding how the sale is made, right? And so I think that was like really helpful. And in retrospect, I hadn't realized it at the time. Like, I just took the job because I wanted a job and it paid well. And I was like, this looks like a good company, so I don't really care what the role is. So I did sales. But in retrospect, it's what got me my internship at LinkedIn, which was a sales program. And if I didn't have a sales internship before that, I probably wouldn't have been considered. Like, it was the one thing I could directly tie to the sales program at LinkedIn that could say, like, I am like worthy of this role and I have experience in sales.
Yeah. Well, I actually, hot take, I think everyone should do sales at least once in their life. I feel like it's like such a fundamental life skill, career skill to know how to convince someone to buy something, understand the sales process. Whether you want to, you know, accelerate in the corporate ladder, you want to start your own company, you literally just want to be a part-time content creator. Like, all of that is being able to know how to be persuasive. And a lot of sales is understanding human psychology.
Yes.
And how to push things forward for you and in your favor. Incredible life skills.
Yeah.
I actually feel every young person should figure out a way to do sales. It doesn't have to be like through a full summer internship or like a full-time job, which honestly I think that's ideal because that's you can really nail that and get really good at it in that experience. You can do it part-time, you can start your own thing and try to sell something on the side. Getting some sort of sales experience on your resume, I think is like very much of a career hack.
Yeah. Like, you're everyone's selling all the time. You're always selling yourself. Like, that's why I think, like, I'm personally really good at job interviewing. Like, it's a different ecosystem, the job market, but it's selling at the end of the day. Like, you're a business providing value to a business. Like, if you think of it that way, you're selling yourself to them. So yeah, that's all it is.
No, exactly. So you do a lot of content about this, you know, interview prep, how to network, how to get a better LinkedIn profile. How did you like land in this specific world of content, and like what excites you about creating content and like helping younger people in their careers?
Yeah, so my content creation story is one of the like blowing up overnight type of things. I wasn't really going after it. I wasn't trying to become a creator, but it had always been something in the back of my mind that I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, I wasn't averse to it, you know, but I wasn't like, I want to become one. So my senior year of college, I literally just like posted a video one day and I woke up and it had like millions of views. And I had texts from friends being like, why are you on my For You page? It was crazy. I just thought it was going to be the like 5 minutes of fame that I would have. And it still is to this day, probably like the most viewed video on my profile, though. It was like super random, but it has nothing to do with what I create now. It really just like sort of put me on the map, I guess. And then from there, like my boyfriend at the time, my friends were really supportive of me and being like, you should like take advantage of this. This is like, not many people get handed like a viral video and suddenly amass a huge amount of followers. And because it was something I was interested in, I was like, okay, yeah, I should take advantage of this. So then I just sort of took it and ran with it. Like that, from that original video, I made a whole series based on it, and that sort of got like That's an really actual clever. Following.
Can I ask you how many views that video got and how many followers you got from that?
Yeah.
Approximately, like rough estimates.
I think so within one day, I think it was like 2 million views, or no, I woke up to 2 million views. So let's maybe see like 3 million views, and I had like 20,000 followers.
What?
In 24 hours. It was insane. And by the end of it, when I did the series and everything, I had gotten 100,000 followers.
That's why.
This was also back in the day when like you could grow fast on TikTok.
Okay, but also good on you for seizing that moment. You could have been like, that's cool, and moved on with your life. But you said, no, let me see how I can actually build myself, build my career, build my brand in this moment. I think very few people do that. And know how to do that in the right way, like you did. Making a series, transitioning your profile, taking that for your personal brand. And I'm sure that's also come in handy in, you know, when you're talking to companies and your job, like, hey, I know how to make content, I know how to sell myself, I know how to create a good story. Like, all those are fundamental skills to being a creator on TikTok, right? So
so true. It's like one of the reasons why my company now, like why I got the job I'm in now, like they told me.
I mean, there's also this level of being aware of, oh, this is a potential opportunity I can seize, and being like I think there's this concept of like tuning yourself to be highly perceptive and observant to, okay, this might be something interesting, let me follow my intuition and like run after it. how are you able to recognize that in that moment? And how can we do a better job of like seizing opportunities? And when something like, you have to really rely on your gut in that moment, because you could have been like, oh, this is my 5 minutes of fame, and kind of like brushed it off and moved on, because once you made that decision of going and potentially, making that your personal brand, that requires effort and time and consistency and dedication. That's not something that was like very much handed for free. You had to put in the work, right? And so I think oftentimes we're afraid of the cost. Like, what if I'm wrong? What if like this was like a silly thing to seize and it's not actually a good opportunity, right? So yeah, how can we do a better job of that?
That's such a good question. I think that there's two pieces to it, like off the top of my head. And one is the people that you surround yourself with. And two is practice. So I think I'll start with practice because it'll make more sense how I'm going to describe this. But like just having that mindset, you have to apply it every time a situation arises in your life. And like, I think like I talk about this a lot in how when something bad happens to you, like always looking at the silver lining, like that takes practice. That's a mindset to like conquer challenges that come your way and not get like pushed down by them, like basically let them help you grow. It's really like a mind, because every time now something bad happens to me, I'm like, okay, like I just start thinking about what are the good things, like why is life pushing me in this direction. The same type of thing here, like when something comes your way, like if it's a positive thing, like why is this happening, like what can I do with this opportunity? So it's like maybe you could learn it overnight, but I feel like, I don't know, it like builds up. Like every time something happens to you, it's a way of like stepping back from your life and sort of viewing yourself as like a third party and being like, okay, why is this happening? Like just sort of analyzing it from from a different perspective, from a bird's eye view. And second to that is like the people that you surround yourself with. Like I said, at the time when I went viral, like the people that I was with in my life encouraged me to do that. And the people that I'm with in my life now, like my parents, like my support system, like my parents, my roommate, my friends, if something comes my way, like they're going to encourage me to do what's best for me and give me different perspectives and ideas. And I think like leaning on them for support is really important.
Totally. I mean, practice I think is so key, right? Not practice on executing the thing that you're seizing, because it's going to be different in every environment, but practicing being reflective and perceptive and observant of what's happening around you. What is the universe throwing your way? And actually like stopping for a moment, pausing and thinking about it critically. It's not going to be random. It's not going to just happen on a whim or just be like the first thing you think of, right? Like, I think the other thing you mentioned that's so obvious but non-obvious at the same time is like surrounding yourself with people who are going to like lift you and grow you and support you. I think, I mean, you're obviously like lucky to have, and not lucky, I mean, you chose these people to surround yourself with. I think sometimes a lot of us are unlucky and like potentially our families are not supportive, or we don't have the best friends, or we're kind of stuck in a toxic situation. So I think it's really important to remember that sometimes you don't have to get support from your family. If you have really supportive parents, you have really supportive family, that is amazing, obviously, and you're very lucky for that. But at the same time, we can find support in like many different places. It doesn't necessarily have to be the like core people that are like default around you.
Yeah. And so sometimes I have disagreed with what they say I want to do, and I'm like, no, like I think I know what's best because I'm the one doing this in my own life. So I'm going to do this. And
and standing up for yourself when, that like red flag or that alarm goes off in your body, like, that advice didn't feel right to me. Right. But I think it's really important that you're constantly curing the, 5 people that you're surrounding yourself with at all times. So you're constantly getting that right amount of encouragement, support. So in that moment that when you are practicing observing and you're reflecting critically and you're like, okay, this is my intuition, this is my gut, it's that last 1% of like getting the right positivity and encouragement around you in that support system to go do that hard thing. And we have to manufacture that in our lives. I think if it's given to us, we're lucky, but I think we think it's a little bit, I think we think that we all deserve this, which is we do all deserve this. That's not what I mean, but I think we think that it's all given to us. But I would say I would argue that most people have to carry it and find it. It takes effort, just like anything in life. It takes effort. There are no shortcuts.
Yeah, that's really true. And I think like an intro to manufacturing it, now that like you were just talking, I'm thinking like, I feel like a lot of the support, I get it through creators that I've seen online who are sharing their stories of like whatever situation it is, right? Like if I've if you've ever had a job offer and you don't know how to like negotiate it, for example, like there's a bunch of videos on TikTok about that. I feel like I lean on creators who are sharing their personal story, and because they are personal and sharing their perspectives of what they've gone through, it's almost like having this like virtual mentor that's able to give you that support. And I think that's like a way to like intro yourself into that space and like start framing your mindset around how to think about things differently.
I love that you said that, because maybe 10 years ago it was important to have these 5 people you surround yourself with be like actual real physical people around you.
Yeah.
But yeah, we live in a digital age.
This is so meta, but
okay, maybe when the 3rd or the 4th person of the 5 people are literal people you've never met in real life, and just people who you admire, who have great content or like great value to add in your life, and you consume their content often. Fine, like if that's what you need to do to manufacture,
if they're
that,
inspiring and like good people that are gonna help you do what you want to do.
We live in an age where technology is so accessible, and TikTok is such an amazing platform to able to hear just normal everyday people's stories, that well, we might as well double tap into that. And yeah, naturally, if you're going to consume someone's content all the time, that's for sure going to influence the way you think about things and the decision making in your life. So constantly curating not just the physical people around you, but actually the digital people's content that you're consuming, and making sure that, you know, that is actually the right type of content gearing you towards your goals. So that's the ultimate hack. If you don't naturally have that environment, if you're struggling to have the mind, you can find that online. The people who you never even have to interact with on a one-on-one basis. Totally just you consuming their content. And I think we've had for a very long time this like negative association with social media and just being on our phones and our laptops and TVs for way too long, which obviously there is a huge importance to being outside, being active, and not being like on our devices all the time. But the reality of the situation is, in the last, and I think the pandemic is something that really taught us this, is that, you know, we're a digital first society now. So some of the most important things we're going to learn is going to be online. It's not even going to be through like everyday experiences. So by simply rejecting it or not tapping into it or being better than social media or better than digital age, and you're actually you're
putting
actually
yourself at a disadvantage.
Exactly. And you're removing opportunities for yourself, I think. Yeah. So very cool. So of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, I think 1 or 2 should be digital people that you inspire. And your role models.
I like this new theory that we've come up with. I think this is why like social media is so, or like short form video and long form video content are both so popular, because it does give you that like I think of like Emma Chamberlain and all the analysis of why she's so popular. Like she feels like she's just your best friend sitting there. Same thing of just the rise of other creators and people sharing their stories, or like creators like us, like we share our stories of like in a career context of what we've gone through. And it's the same thing. Like I'm sure there's people who view both of our videos and get inspired by what we've done every day, and we're unaware of it. But I think it's amazing, and definitely one of the reasons why I love to create.
Totally. I mean, technology's become so advanced that it's actually so immersive now. You kind of feel like you're actually talking to them in real life. It doesn't feel like I feel like when I was, you know, in high school and college, I feel like social media still felt very removed from like my physical world. It was like much less immersive. We would just like post like an Instagram picture, which is obviously very fake, very manufactured, not very candid moment. Where now with TikTok and it's like being video first, social media I think is like going that direction. It feels very natural, very immersive, and like you said, almost like you can know them without even having ever met them. I know you make a lot of career content as well. What would you say are like the best advice that you've given, or any hot takes you have that you can share with us that you make content about?
Let me start with the best advice that I've ever been given. One of the best pieces of advice, and this applies to when you're job searching, and I think that's like a lot of the content that people like to consume from me, especially in the job market right now. Like everyone's job searching all the time, and there's a lot of layoffs, so it's unfortunate, but there's a lot of job seekers. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got a few years ago was how to approach job searching. And I think this can also be applied to just like how to approach your career in general, but there's always you should always prioritize one of three things when you're doing your job search, and that's location, the company, or like the product, and then the role itself. So those are like the three like pillars that sort of come with any job. And yeah, it's pretty hard to get all three of them, right? Like that's like the perfect job then at that point. So like, let's say,
perfect job doesn't exist.
I also agree with that. The perfect job does not exist. It might in theory, and then you start it and then it doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, so you choose one of those. Like when I moved to New York City earlier this year, I wanted to move to New York City. I was like, I will take any job that's based here. I also wanted to be in marketing. So I guess like that was two of the things, which I guess two of the things can work as well. But I didn't care what the company or the industry or anything was. I was like, just give me those. And
also, marketing is very general.
Yeah, marketing is very.
I was super specific, like this very specific thing. So it was like half of the second thing.
It's like 1.5 of the three. Yeah. So it works. No, I just think that's like vital. And in college, like I sort of talked about earlier when I was walking through my career, like each step in my career journey was thinking through one of those things. And most of the time it was about role and company, but this time when I moved to New York City, it was mostly about location. I just think that's a great way to like think about, you can even apply it to any other decision that you're going to make in your life. Like it's just a great way to think about things and take one thing that drives you, because then you won't be upset when you're let down by the other things.
100%. I mean, I work for myself, and that is as close to perfect as you can get, because you can curate all these three things. And I promise you, it's still not perfect. There's always a con. Just if there's a pro to something, there's a con to something. Mm-hmm. That's just life. That's like beyond career. That's just anything. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense that if you're trying to find this perfect job or find this job that meets all requirements, it probably doesn't exist by the nature of like how this works. And so being mindful and prioritizing, what you care about the most is going to optimize for actually landing something that makes sense for your career in that moment and is going to take you to the next step of your career. So that's great advice. So you run marketing at a software startup. What is that like? Do you feel like this is kind of the right marketing role for you? I know you mentioned earlier that social media wasn't your jam. So how is marketing in this company different, and how is that helping? How is like being at a startup helping you specifically grow in your marketing career?
Yeah, it's helping me immensely. Like I've learned so much. I think everyone needs to work at a startup at some point in their career. Like you just learn. You just have to learn. You're just thrown right in the deep end. And like touching back on what we talked about in my career before, like I started off my career, or my full-time career, let's say after college, at a big corporation, at LinkedIn, which I do think is great too. Like it builds something on your resume. It gives you a stamp of approval, credibility, but coupling that with a startup, and you can do either one. You can do it in either order, the startup, just like you're able to learn so much. And so I was employee 16. So we were about 16 people. Now we've scaled like almost double the size. And I just remember the first like 2 weeks of my job, I was like, I've learned more here than I've learned in a year at a corporation. Just like that's insane wild. Amounts of growth and learning that you can have at a startup, just because it's so fast paced. Direction is pivoting all the time. You're trying to understand the marketplace fit. You're trying to understand like who your consumer is, who your target audience is, like wildfires happen, like all these things are happening at the same time, and you're juggling like 20 different roles in one role. And so that's really what marketing is for me at this company is, and why I'm so grateful to be in this role. I took it because it was a marketing generalist role, and I wanted the foundation of my marketing career to be at a place where I could learn a bunch of different parts of marketing. I'm still not exactly sure what path of marketing I want to go down. I have a clearer view now, but I wasn't exactly sure earlier on. And so that's why I took this like generalist role where I'm juggling a bunch of different things. But for us, it looks like, I mean, we really have every piece of marketing turned on. When I first joined, we didn't. So it was like, how do you grow and scale a marketing organization? And I have a marketing leader that I report to too, so this wasn't all me. But how do you like grow and scale a marketing organization and set the foundation of it? Like, how do you turn on PR? How do you turn on social? How do you turn like all these things at a bigger company that's further down the line? it's already in place and there's a foundation laid out for them and how the operations for each piece of it already exist. But you have to, and we still are, like turn those things on and like make them operate and work while like building the plane while flying it, right? Like you're setting the foundations while actually making them work and like drive success and value for the company. So yeah, it's like a bunch of different pieces of marketing all going on at the same time, which is really fun and exciting. And it has allowed me to learn a lot like about pieces of marketing that just like you don't learn in school.
Oh yeah. I mean, what you learn at a job can never compare to what you learn in school. And then what you learn at a startup can never compare to any other job. So I think what you said makes so much sense. Is marketing kind of the place you want to stay in your career for the rest of it? Do you have an idea of what that like dream perfect job is for you? I know we don't believe in the perfect job, but sometimes just even having an idea of it helps you figure out how you need to progress and get to the next stage in the next stage of your career.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think there's always like, you should always have an end, maybe like vague end goal in mind, because there's always something that you're working towards, and you can always sort of measure every step that you take on the way to be like, will this help me get there or not? And where will this like push me towards? But I think for me, I really want to become a marketing leader at an organization where I can make those decisions from a really strategic level about how the brand shows up in the market. I just think that's like so fascinating, and overseeing all the different pieces. I don't have a bunch of specificity on what company or product that would be, but I'd want it to be a product that I'm genuinely really passionate about, and just probably would also want to be the end consumer of said product, or have been at some point in my life, and like really understand that audience. That's just so vital for any marketer. It's a lot harder when you're marketing to someone that you don't understand, but it does show the skills of a good marketer when you can market to someone that you're not, because you're basically understanding and stepping into the shoes of a different person every single day, and understanding how they think and like how you can talk to them, basically.
Totally. I mean, if you are the end customer of the product you're branding, obviously it's going to be more fun, because it's like this automatic connection you have. But yeah, building that empathy for the user is definitely like a very critical skill to being good at marketing, and knowing that you can do that. I mean, you're doing that now, right? Like, I imagine you're not the end customer of the current startup you're at, right?
I'm not, no.
So you have that. It's only going to be easier. You're only going to move forward to something that you can connect to like faster, better in that new role. What does your job serve for you in your life? I think this is a question that I think a lot of people have very different answers to. For some people, their job is everything. It's their identity, it's their purpose, their impact. For others, it's, it fits in the 9 to 5 because they find purpose outside of that. And I also don't think it's binary. There's a whole spectrum in between. Where does it serve for you?
This is something that I think about all the time, and that I struggle with at some points too. I think my entire life, like one of my values is work-life balance. I think that having separation between the two is really important for me, and like to keep like your mental health in check and just everything. Like that's just something that's drilled into me from my family, from working at LinkedIn. Like that's a huge pillar of their culture as well, which I was really grateful for. And it's just like a core part of how I approach work and career. But I think that there's work-life balance doesn't come how people say it comes. It's more, I actually learned this term from someone else. I don't remember exactly who, but work-life harmony, I think, is a better way. This is like the phrase that they called it. And what that means is like 1 week you might have a deadline at work, and like you need to work 10 hours a day to meet that because you have something coming up, and you're like, relationship might get pushed to the side a little bit during that, or your social life, or whatever it is, whatever other like pillar in your life is going on, like that has to tone down so that work can take priority for that time period. Vice versa, like if something's going on in your personal life, maybe work has to like get pushed to the side a little bit, and you're like, okay, like I need to log off at 5 today because I have this like priority in my life going on right now, or like visiting home, or whatever it is. Like I think that's what work-life balance looks like. It doesn't look like you know, I only work from the hours of 9 to 5 and then I log off right away and I don't think about work ever again until the next morning at 9. Like, that's not how it looks like for me, especially at a startup. Like, you can't expect to work that way. You have to be like, you're always thinking about your job. Unfortunately and fortunately, because there's like pros and cons to it. But I think that's how work and career and life and work all balance together. And if you have really high expectations for yourself in your career, you're like late 20s, 30s, I feel like, is the time when you sort of have to hustle a little bit more to get to those goals. And then I think of myself, okay, like down the line, like when I'm ready to have like a family or something like that, like that, maybe that's a time where I can like settle down a little bit or like chill a little bit more on like work and lean more into my family life, like from a more of like a big picture perspective. That's how I imagine them existing together. But I also just always think it's so important to have your own hobbies and interests while also managing your career and progressing in your career, which is hard to do. Like, you really have to have a lot of diligence to keep the two on track at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. I love that you said work-life harmony. I think that's such a great way to put it. Balance is very much something that you determine for yourself. It could be across a day, it could be across a week, across a month, it could be across a decade. I think that oftentimes people look at me building my own company, hustling, grinding. I effectively work, I would say 99% of the time. And people are looking at me, oh, she has like an unhealthy, toxic relationship with work. First of all, for many years before this, I was almost underworking in corporate, and I was really focusing on my social life, my health, my mental health, all these things. And I'm sure in the future, I'm going to probably take a break from this. I want to have my own family one day, for sure. And that was going to require focus and attention. It's not going to be that I'm going to have this family on the side. I'm going to care about it and put into it. And so across my life, I'll be balanced. But in any single one moment, I might come across as crazy or extreme to someone else. And I don't think that this is the way that everyone has to live their life. But I think it's knowing what works for you and how you want to harmonize and balance that across a week or across a year or across a decade. And that's to each their own. But I do agree with you deeply of like harmony is really important. It shouldn't be that for the rest of your life you only focus on your career, or like the rest of your life you only focus on your family, because then I think that you end up living an unbalanced life, and I would argue that you'd probably feel unfulfilled at the end of it. And I really do believe that in order to experience anything extraordinary in life, anything above average, you have to put above average work into it. And so for you to be exceptional in career, to be like an exceptional mother, an exceptional sister, or whatever it is, that for that area of life that you're prioritizing, you're focusing on, you have to put extra hours into it. You have to do that the most. And so I feel like finding that harmony across a year or a month or a decade is probably more fulfilling than finding it across a day or a week, because I think you end up not able to unlocking any sort of potential in any sort of interesting area in your life.
Yeah.
So that's I really so love true. That. I love this term, work-life harmony.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start saying it.
I know. Really I need to start saying it more often. Like,
yeah.
It was like a few years ago that I heard this term and this theory at like a speech or conference or something like that, and it really stuck with me because it's true. Like, you can't confine it to these specific parameters that I feel like we normally see online of what work-life balance should mean.
Yeah.
And then second to what you're saying too, like, you get back what you put into something.
Yes.
It's so true.
Yeah. I think a lot of people fear that, oh, if I work at a startup, I lose this work-life balance. I'm going to work like a dog, whatever. Yeah, maybe that is startup, but for forgetting that you can find harmony, in that like broader time frame. And like you mentioned, working at a startup is so critical for your career. You learn so much that you couldn't learn in any other environment. So it's important, I think, for everyone to think about, okay, what stage of my life am I going to be in a phase where I can actually put more than into this startup, into that era of my life. I can allow myself to work overtime. Maybe that's early in your career or late in your career, whatever that means for that person, which is obviously going to be different in a personal question. But it does feel like an exercise that everyone should take a moment and think about, at what stage of my career am I going to find the time to work at a startup? Because it clearly you're going to learn way more at the startup than you would in like a big tech or a big corporate job. And I think that if you want to have a greater range of experience and greater range of skills under your tool belt, it's important to work at different stages of companies. So
true.
It's a great way to, I think, maybe try to find where that fits for you and when that makes sense without you sacrificing the work-life harmony.
Yeah, definitely tailoring it to where you are in your own life and how much you think you can give. Like when I accepted the offer for the current job that I'm at almost a year ago, I remember thinking through like, this is going to be very different than what I'm used to coming from a corporation. And I was prepared for that. I'm like,
and you're
coming
from LinkedIn.
Coming from LinkedIn to this job, yes.
Huge jump.
Huge jump. I don't even know the percent change from like
100%.
20,000 to 16 is pretty fucking big.
It's
so,
wild.
Yeah, I was like prepared for that, but I remember thinking like, okay, yeah, like I'm going to be grinding for the next year or two, whatever it is, like in assumption that, the company scales to what we want it to be. Like I'm going to be grinding, and then that's just like, but I'm in my mid-20s and that's fine. That's what I want to do. And there's pros and cons to everything. Like being at a startup, I can look at myself every day and think like I'm doing such cool stuff. I'm learning so much that's so interesting to me. Like I love marketing, and it's so fascinating to learn and have other leaders that I work with in marketing who I can learn so much from. And in addition to that, like you're learning so much, but you're sort of giving up the like maybe a little bit of like your own personal time is getting taken up. I'm definitely a lot more stressed than I was in my last role. But then when I worked at LinkedIn and I was at a big corporation, I wasn't feeling as fulfilled. Like making an impact is something that really drives me as a person. And so I wasn't getting fulfilled in that aspect of my life, but I was able to spend a lot more time on like my relationship, developing my friendships, exploring the city when I lived in Chicago. So like those were things that were really like my cup was filled in those areas, and like not as much within career learning, I guess. And now it's sort of flipped. So, the grass is always greener, and there's like pros and cons to any role that you take.
Exactly. Like you mentioned, you can't get all the things. You can't get a perfect job. You can't have everything in life. It's not real. Selectively choose what point do you need to focus on what thing in that area of your life. I love eras. I think that's the way everyone should live. Everyone should just like have an era.
Yes.
And be dedicated and focused to one thing in that moment. And I think we think that things like, oh, I'm going to focus on, full sending and experiencing New York City. I'm going to finding a boyfriend. These are not bad eras to focus on. If that is what you need and you finds you joy, like do it. I've had those eras in my
6 months.
Life.
Like do it. Yeah.
And now that those other things feel very complete, I've lived in like the best cities in the world. I've spent most time there. The relationships, the friendships in my life feel really secure. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna full send it on my startup era, and I'm gonna just fully grind here and find something exceptional, right? So, I think that pivot you made, that 20,000 to 16 people, is just a great way to like enter your new era and just like learn all these new things about yourself, which is so exciting. So through this time, you've been content creating also. Where does that fit into your schedule? Because that takes so much time, and how do you monetize that if you do, and what's your like long-term plan for your personal brand and content creation? Do you see this serving as like a forever part-time thing? Would you ever be full-time?
Yeah, I get this question all the time. So the way that I balance it with work, I probably spend like average of 10 hours a week. Like I feel like it's not an insane amount of time that I'm spending on creation. I batch create all of my content where I'm just, staring at the screen and giving my advice. And then I also do a lot of like vlogs and work vlogs. And so the beauty of vlogging is that you're just living your life and your camera's just with you. It doesn't really take additional time except for, like editing and voiceover, which, could take like 30 minutes to an hour. Now that I've been a creator for 2 years or over 2 years, it's so embedded in my life, I don't even think about it. It's just like how it is. And I love doing it. So it's not like a burden to me at all. So that's like time-wise. For monetization, I'm just like, I just keep creating what I want to create and specific to my niches, and try to keep growing myself as a brand. And the brands and the companies that want to do deals with me, they come to me. I don't really do that much pitching. I work with an agent now, and so that's been really helpful in just like balancing my time. But Yeah, I mean, I wish I could say like that I do a lot to monetize, but it's really just consistently creating content and helping myself grow, and then the brands want to work with me because of the audience and like the type of things that I'm creating. So that's sort of like operationally how it works for me. And in long term, I don't ever see myself going full time. I always see this as like a part-time thing. I think like the monetization part is a great perk of what I do, but I don't think that's the reason why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I want my own personal brand online that couples my career at the same time. Like they're both growing together at the same time, and I'm sharing insights from my career in social media. And, you know, I'm probably also applying things that I know and trends and everything of like how social media works as a creator to like how you approach marketing. So, you know, they balance each other out, and they sort of work in tandem together. And that's how I view myself forever. Like, I mean, look at like the founder of Tarte, like the founder of Spanx. Like both of those are amazing women founder or female founders, and they have their own, maybe not to the extent that like we create now, but like they have their own TikToks and they talk about, you know, what they learned in their careers and share it with the world, and people love to listen to it because they're amazing, successful women. And that's what I see my platform being. It's like as I grow in my career, I can share that knowledge online.
Totally. I mean, whatever you're doing outside is helping you in your job, and vice versa. So it's like seems very complementary. Makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice for other people starting out in their careers who want to start working on building their personal brands on the side? And what does that mean in like the digital age of now, right? Should everyone be a TikTok influencer? Like, is there merit to being a LinkedIn influencer if you want to be super career focused? Like, how do you think about this? How should we give advice for people starting out?
I say just do it. Just start. Like the biggest blocker that I see people who are trying to create, and also in their careers too, is just like, it's just like a mindset thing. Like you just have to start, and you're not going to be good at first. Like you just won't. I look back at my early videos and I'm like, that was horrible. Like, why did I post that? So like, but that's fine. Like that's how you learn and that's how you grow. You dive right in the deep end. It's like it's like a startup. Like you're your own startup, right? Like you have to learn and like fail fast and learn from that. Right. I just think that's so important. So if you want to start creating, or that's like in the back of your mind, it's like you just got to start it. And I think it's really important in this day and age. I feel like I just saw an article that was about this, and I wish I could reference this right now, but it was about the importance of having a personal brand online when you're applying to jobs. Like I actually started creating on LinkedIn, and that's why I wanted to work at LinkedIn. Like I loved the platform and the career advice that I was learning from other creators and that I was sharing as a creator. And that definitely, I'm assuming that had to help me stand out when I was applying to jobs, because it wasn't like, oh my God, she's a creator, like let's hire her. It was this person, probably from like a subconscious psychological level, when someone was viewing my application or like looking me up online or whatever, it's like, oh, like they have their shit together. And there's like a nice curated brand and they can understand who I am pretty easily, and it's very straightforward. And so that doesn't mean like you have to go start posting like every single day, but it can mean that you have your LinkedIn is just like built out a bit more to a certain standard. And yeah, maybe you like create some stuff online that you're passionate about and you share things that resonate with you and like the career that you want to be in or whatever it is. It's just curating your brand and showing the value that you can provide and who you are in a very succinct way.
Yeah. And if you're talking about things that are authentic to you, like industries you are excited about or something that happened in your career, you're going to naturally attract the right people as well, who are going to like lift you in your career. I think what you said, the just do it and go for it, makes so much sense. We overthink, should we do it on TikTok or LinkedIn? Or all are great and fine. Like you can build an audience anywhere. Do the thing that's authentic for you, because this is clearly like a numbers game. It's a consistency game. It's a constantly finding time to do it, regardless of I got no views or a million views or whatever it is. So it's just best to find the thing that feels authentic, feels natural, feels fun. And I think, you know, the right people will see that. And it's kind of like you said, they'll kind of be able to understand you really quickly. And that helps in so many contexts, not even just your career context.
Exactly.
If you go back in time and tell your younger self some advice, what would you tell her?
This is a good one. Just stop thinking what other people think of you. I still do telling myself this right now, like stop thinking about what other people think. if you're going to make change in this world, or you're going to do anything in this world, honestly, like not even be a big, like someone public, you're not going to make everyone happy. And like, I'm a people pleaser. I think most women are people pleasers inherently. It's something that I'm always working to not be, but you just can't think about what other people think. And I think that held me back so much in high school and college, is always just being not confident and subconscious of myself, and that just really prevents you from being who you're meant to become. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I wish that someone had told me this earlier too. I feel like I spent or wasted so much of my time thinking about how people are going to perceive you. The reality of the situation is, if you do something cringe or weird, no one sees it because the algorithm doesn't push it out anyways. So the only thing that people ever see are the times when you are actually doing something that's interesting or entertaining or educational or actually cool, that's getting views. People only notice that.
Yeah.
And people
it's blown up for a reason.
Exactly. And people only think about you for 30 milliseconds anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever, like, focus on yourself. Do you. Stop overthinking. Think about what people think. That's all. Fantastic advice.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming on the pod.
Of course.
This was so fun. I feel like this was so overdue, and I'm so excited we did this.
I know. I'm so glad we got to do it. And we got to do it in NYC. So
I know, in this beautiful studio.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.